Hi, everybody. It's Mike from Hear the Watchmen. And, today on our show, I'm so excited to have a guest that we've had on before. Just an amazing man. It's Mr. David Heavener. David, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Mike, it's so good to be with you. And I want to say hello to everybody in Watchman land.
Well, thank you. David, folks, is a actor, director, producer, writer, singer, songwriter. At age 17, he took off and went to Nashville, Tennessee, where he started writing songs. And in a very short period of time, he had two top 10 hits, and he was writing for shows like Hee Haw, for those of you that remember Hee Haw, and The Tonight Show. He's just truly what do I say? A Renaissance man, a true Renaissance man. But something really interesting that David is doing, David is really working hard to rid Hollywood of the demonic influences by coming out with some new series that we're going to talk about. David, thanks again for joining us. And I wanted to ask you a question, just to get started. How did you get started in all of this?
Well, Mike, it's like you said, I was a songwriter in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was fortunate enough to have a few hit records, but I just felt like it wasn't enough. And I felt like God was calling me out to Hollywood to pitch my songs to get them in movies. And I used to write for a guy named Marty Robbins, and he hooked me up out there with a few people. But I went out there to pitch my songs, and people didn't want to hear my songs, but somebody thought I was an actor. So they put me in a low-budget martial arts movie, which happened to do very well, and that started my career. And so 40 some odd movies later, here I
am. But you've taken a turn. You were in, correct me if I'm wrong, but for a while you were really in the mainstream Hollywood grip. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I made a lot of movies for HBO, Showtime, and I made, quite frankly, movies that were rated R. I gave them what they wanted, the action and the, all the other stuff that goes with it. And but now I've come into a new, I guess you could say, a new level, a new enlightenment, maybe a new way of thinking, because I do have the mind of Christ, and I'll share that with you.
Well, David, I mean, it's interesting because you don't meet many people like you that are willing to put it all on the line to make a movie or a series and not be influenced by everything that Hollywood does to influence actors and directors and writers. What happened to you that made you take that leap of faith?
Well, when I first got into Hollywood, I noticed it was a system, and it was a rigged system that only a few people could make it. And if you thought a certain way and you said certain things, you were pretty much locked out. And so I went outside of the system making independent films, which did very well. As a matter of fact, they did so well that HBO came to me and signed a contract and wanted me to do movie after movie for them. And I always played a character who lived outside of the system. It's a character that was more like a vigilante, if you will, who didn't adhere to the rules and regulations, especially when those rules and regulations were twisted and bent toward a system that was already bent and broken. So I realized that if I was going to make it, I had to go around the system. And so this brings me to what I'm doing now. Since I've always played the guy that never lived by the rules, I guess maybe that might be why God has chosen me to make a TV series that breaks all the rules.
Well, and we're going to talk about that. You're going to be at the Hear the Watchmen conference, March 22nd through the 25th. It's coming right up, folks. You can still get a ticket. Go to hearthewatchmen.com. David's going to be an exhibitor there. You can come out and meet him, and you can find out one-on-one about his new series, The Last Evangelist. Now, talk to us about that, David. What led you to do The Lost Evangelist? And I know what it's about, but tell us, for the other listeners, kind of give us a synopsis of what it's about and what led you to do this project.
Sure, Mike. through my years of making movies, I always was a music minister. I always did go to church on Sunday. I had my spiritual man that I put on. But that's the problem. I had my spiritual clothes I put on Sunday, but then I had my movie clothes I put on the rest of the week. And I noticed that there were two systems. One was the Hollywood system, which may make movies about God every once in a while, but it's certainly not going to tell you the truth. Then there was this other system that was being created. It was called the Christian faith-based movie system, which is a very corrupt system because it's a feel-good system. There are good movies in it, but unfortunately, the good doesn't outweigh the bad. And so I realized that the Christian film industry was just preaching to the choir, if they were preaching at all. And the Hollywood system wasn't going to tell you the truth. And so God laid it on my heart, David, just make a regular series that about real people dealing with what's happening today. And I'm in the, God speaking, God says, and put me in the middle of it. Make me the norm instead of the abnormal. And I said, wow, God, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. And so this series is about, I play a cop in modern day time, and the churches now are registered or unregistered by the government, one world government. And if you're not registered, they bring me in to come in and bust an unregistered church, an underground church, if you will. And so I go from place to place, arresting these people and persecuting them, such as like a modern day Saul. And until I meet God one night in my apartment, and he says, he basically puts me to work for him. So with a Bible in one hand and a gun in the other, I set out to deal with the current events of today, which is the cashless society, the Antichrist, the mark of the beast. I mean, it goes on and on, Mike. We can make this series for the rest of our lives and never run out of themes.
Wow, what an interesting plot line there. I mean, it's fascinating, you know, because like you said, you're trying to bring God back into it, and I think we've lost that. You just said, you know, God, the Bible in one hand and a gun in the other. You know, let's face it, if that had been in the Florida school recently, maybe we wouldn't have had the tragedy that we had there. But what is the resistance of Hollywood to have God in the movies? I mean, why are they? What are they afraid of?
Well, basically, it's a system, and I don't like to talk about people. I like to talk about systems because people are in the system. The system, which people are in, they do not want the truth because the system is owned by Satan. The enemy owns that system and does not want the truth to be out. Now, you mentioned the shootings in the school. Here's the system. That system says we need to take guns out of the hands of people so the shooting doesn't happen. God says you need to put me back in school. If you put me back in the school, you will not have these issues. You see, the problem is not guns in the hands of people. It's taken Bibles out of the hands of people. And so Hollywood does not want the truth to be exposed. You can do feel-good movies, you can twist God, you can just, and maybe don't even talk about God, but don't tell the truth. Well, unfortunately, they're in for a rude awakening because God willing, I'm going to tell the truth.
Now, you know what, David? I'm gonna ask you a question about a quote. You were recently featured in Talent Monthly magazine, and folks, you can go to talentmonthly.com. It's March issue. And it was a great article, but it starts off with a wonderful picture of you. I want to have you get me a picture of myself like that to use, but it starts off with a quote: "There will come a day where people like us will start teaming together and there will be a transfer of power." What did you mean by that?
What I mean by that is where two or more are gathered in his name for real and willing to die for the cause, that's where it starts. And right now, it's starting, Mike. Right now, there's the remnant who's arising right now. And you know who you are out there. You're one of them. Jeannie's one of them. And many, many of your followers and your listeners are part of the remnant. God's now calling the remnant up and understanding that together we have the power that the world can't even comprehend. So what's going to happen, you'll see this very quickly shift, that the power will go from the ungodly, from the worldly to the godly. Okay. Now, when I say power, a lot of people think, oh, that means I'm going to make a lot of money. That means I'm going to be famous. That means that, well, I don't know what exactly that means except power. You see, the power means that we have the ability to maneuver and to get things done. And this is what's happening. You're going to see that exchange of power very, very soon. It's happening now, actually.
That's exciting to hear. Now, you know, David, typically, I'm not saying always, but I'm saying typically, when we see a Christian movie and it's billed as a Christian movie, it's very disappointing. I mean, it comes out very hokey, and the market, I guess, for Christian movies and series it's just not there. I mean, there are some inroads being made right now, but you're kind of out in the forefront of all this. You're not billing this series, though, as a Christian series, are you?
No, as a matter of fact, I ask people not to call me a Christian filmmaker. I don't like that label. I'm a filmmaker who happens to be a child of God. Okay, so we put too many labels on these things. The problem with Christian films is they want to make everybody happy. They're trying to make money. And because you can't make money, you can't make more movies and a nice profit. People are in it now for the money. And so what they're doing is they're making these universal feel-good movies, putting the label Christian on them, because the Christians will go out and get them thinking that that's a gift from God. They'll watch it. And unfortunately, Mike, here's the problem. This is what makes me mad. Some people think it's the gospel. And a lot of these films, they're anything but the gospel. I mean, I can find the gospel of Jesus Christ more in some of these R-rated movies than I can some of these, quote, Christian movies. So what I'm doing is none of that. I'm throwing all the labels out the window, and I'm calling it CSI meets the Book of Revelation. And it's, you know, it's as simple as that. And people go, oh, well, that's interesting. What kind of, well, it's CSI meets the Book of Revelation. It's action, it's drama, it's suspense, you know, maybe some comedy in it.
Wow. I mean, that's just great stuff right there. I mean, you really said it all, because, you know, let's just take one mainstream movie that was sort of billed as being about the Bible, and that's the movie The Shack. And of course, I read the book when it came out, and I was naive back then. I thought, oh, entertaining book. But that's the danger, don't you believe, when you get Hollywood putting a twist on the Bible.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. I have never seen the movie The Shack. I've never seen most Christian movies. But I can tell you that when I hear everybody in the world raving about a Christian movie, I can pretty much tell you that there's something wrong with that movie. Did you hear what I said? Everybody in the world almost raving about it. When I hear someone doesn't even know God raving about this movie, and yet they're not talking about God, you know, bringing to the truth, the gospel, I'm going, wait a minute, oh, there's something wrong with this picture. So people, we have to be awake. And that's why your conference is so important. Hear the Watchmen, a group of people that get together and listen to other people talk and get awakened. And by the way, your conference was so key in launching this Last Evangelist. You and Jeannie were so key in this. And this was just, 9 months ago, something like this, that it was amazing. And hey, I wanted to give everybody this website if I can, Mike, before I forget it. Yeah, go to lastevangelist.com, lastevangelist.com, sign the newsletter. There's a donate button if God leads you to donate. I'm not going to collect money from investors, even if I have to fund a lot of this myself. This is something God's laid on my heart. I'm going to do it. I need your help. And I want to thank you very much.
Wow. Well, folks, again, thelastevangelist.com. If you find it in your heart, click that donate button. I mean, talk about someone who's truly doing God's work. David's not going out and seeking investors because he doesn't want anybody telling him what to do and what to say. He just wants to tell the truth. Now, David, the last time that you and I spoke together on this show, you were building a set somewhere or doing something like that. Where are we now with when you believe that this series will premiere?
Well, it'll premiere the end of this year. We have our own station, our own Roku and Amazon station, David Heavener TV. You can go to davidheavener.tv. But also, if someone comes along, Mike, a network with a big fat check and doesn't force me to edit it and takes it as it is, hey, we'll take that, won't we? But we always have a home for it. We know we've got a worldwide home for this. We're building sets now. It takes about 3 or 4 months to build some of these sets. And we'll start shooting sometime in May, June, something like that. And we'll have the first episodes released in the third to the last quarter of this year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, folks, again, thelastevangelist.com. Go check it out. Don't just sit back in your chairs and complain about what goes on in Hollywood. Get involved with somebody who's doing something different. David Heavener is doing that. So get involved, be a part of it. It's a movement is what it is. David, again, thank you so much. I know you got to run and you got more work to do today. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us.
Hey, thanks, Mike. God bless you and God bless everybody out there in Hear the Watchman land.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you here in just a few weeks. And folks, don't forget, come on out there, get to the conference, www.hearthewatchman.com. If you absolutely can't make it, you can stream it. There's a button on there that says streaming ticket. Click that. You get to watch it for 6 months. It's a nice way to see the whole conference if you can't be there in person, but there is nothing like being there in person. So folks, until the next time we see you here on the Watchman's Report, God bless each and every one of you. Have a wonderful day. That was fun.
Hey,